The City of Hayes Commission meeting at 4 p.m. to order. First item on the order of business is the consideration of approval of minutes from the regular meeting held on November 22nd. Questions, changes, or comments?
I consider them approved.
Sure. I'll take it.
Okay.
So approved by Commissioner Baird. Consent agenda. Couple things on here. The 2023 cereal malt beverage yearly renewals and the mayoral appointments for approval from the Care Council and Hayes Area Planning Commission that we spoke about earlier. I will ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacob, second by Commissioner Musil. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0.
Oh, yeah, but this is convenient.
All right. Hayes Recreation Commission pool reimbursement request.
Good evening, Commission. Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks. As you know, last week we had our joint meeting with the Hayes Recreation Commission. Talked about several things. One of the items we talked about that does require City Commission approval is the pool reimbursement. So, kind of a couple slides here to recap what we talked about last week. Attendance is up from last year. We still haven't fully rebounded from COVID, but as you can see there, the trends are going up. So we'd sure like to see us at least get to the 2019 numbers again and beyond, but might be a slow process here. Again, the total loss for the Hayes Recreation Commission was $74,890. As you're aware, also, we do have a contract with the Recreation Commission that states that they have a stop loss of $26,000. So you can see there at the bottom, Hayes Rec would be taking the $26,000, and then the remainder would be the city's responsibility at $48,890.12. Showed this last week as well. This is the financial history. So the middle column there in purple that shows what Hayes Rec paid over since 2011. The column right next to it is what the city has paid. And then in the far right column is the total pool loss to the city, including the Hayes Recreation portion that we pay. These are your options. Go ahead and pay them the $48,890.12 or provide further guidance to staff. And this is the action requested.
Jeff, could you go back a couple slides? Last week you kind of talked like that 217, kind of what all was in that. Could you kind of talk about that again?
Yeah, so that 217, it does include the Hayes Rec payment, which we're asking for tonight. It includes electricity, all the chemicals, gas, any pool repairs, pumps, motors, those sort of things. Purchasing of supplies in general for the facility, trash bags and all that sort of stuff. Basically anything that is not directly related to the daily operations portion the city pays for.
But if I remember right, you talked about like the diving boards and the decking.
That does include any capital improvements and or repairs that we've done. So that did include 2 diving boards, which as you recall were extremely expensive.
Right.
The south pool deck was part of that. There were some concrete repairs that we did in-house, but still had to pay the cost of that concrete. There was some work done at the top of the white slide, the ramp going into the white slide. We did some repairs there. So lots of things like that, and it does add up, and that's one of the reasons why it's quite a bit higher for 2022.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion we approve the pool reimbursement request from the Hayes Recreation Commission for the 2022 pool loss amount of $48,890.12 with funding from the 2022 general fund pool budget.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Burgess. Any other questions or comments?
My only comments are yes, the loss continues to go up for the city, but we as a commission we took steps earlier this year to hopefully rectify some of that with raising the fee going forward a little bit. So we're kind of battling this on both ends. So from that standpoint, I had one comment to me from the public, it's always going up, we're paying more and more out of pocket, but that was kind of my response as well. We took steps earlier in the year to try to do something about it a little bit without digging too hard into the general public's pocket as they go to the pool. So.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And one of the questions was asked last week is, what are we expecting for fees? Commissioner Musil, I think you asked that question. What's that going to do for us? That number would be about 18,500 right now if that had already gone through, and so kind of give you a feel for where that might end up.
I know last year, and Toby, I think you can help me out. I had really asked if we would maybe advertise a little bit more for the pool. Didn't really see anything substantial out of that, so I know I think you've already said we're going to go in a different direction with advertising on that. I believe you said that. Or
Melissa actually hit the pool pretty hard this year from an advertising standpoint, and I don't know what her plans are for next year, if she has plans to continue or if that was a one-year thing. It might have just been, well, I think it was actually a decent summer for them weather-wise.
Yeah.
So it wasn't weather affected. So, we can see if she has plans to continue that for another year and then see if that has any effect on attendance.
I would actually I think there's some maybe more positive things that, maybe turn that advertising into something, advertise somewhere else, maybe at the ball fields, because that, as you'll see in a second, it's growing, and maybe we push that even more and stuff, because the pool we know we're only going to get so much and stuff, and I think let's use it where maximize it, I guess.
If we don't advertise and then we take
Yeah.
the COVID year out and we normalize it, we can see if it had
Right.
really much
That
effect.
I think we should do that, in my opinion. But.
Yeah, we can do that.
From my perspective, guys, I hope we continue a well-balanced advertising, because I know that ballparks are going to drive what I consider the spring and summer and into the fall stuff, but when we talk about all of the other amenities we have in our community, it makes a lot of difference to everyone. So I understand completely what Commissioner Musil is saying, but I also would like us to make sure that piece is put in there about the pool along with everything else.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and my understanding is Melissa is planning on doing advertising for the pool. I don't know that she's going to go quite to the extent that we did in 2022. It didn't seem like it panned out, but so.
All right, with a motion and a second on the table, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you very much.
All right, and we'll move on to the charter ordinances and the ordinance.
During the request for proposal process to select a new city attorney, it became clear that the city's ordinances had some ambiguity regarding the appointment of certain officials. So due to the sensitive nature that one of those appointments dealt with the city attorney, staff contracted with outside counsel. And the outside counsel who is here today, J.T. Klaus with the firm of Triplett Wolf Garrettson. He was retained in order to formalize the timing and selection for the city attorney, as well as other appointed officials for the city of Hayes, and eliminate any ambiguity in the process of appointment. So JT has recommended 2 charter ordinances and a cleanup ordinance. And with that, I would turn it over to him to present the ordinances.
He should be on, but you won't be able to see him. So, JT, are you there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Mayor, commissioners, and I can see you fine.
Can you put him up?
So
I'll have to take that down.
That's fine.
I understood my charge to help the commission consolidate, standardize, and establish the requirements for the appointment of its city officers, particularly the city attorney, and sort out the process without ambiguity for the selection and contracting and appointment of a city attorney. Presumably, you're asking me to do this because I'm not the city attorney and have no interest in that. So that's why I understand we've been selected to help with this. Our goal in preparing these was not to change anything specifically, but just to lay out a process that would be clear and acceptable to everyone for the future, and to make the appointment criteria and the timing of that clear, and quite frankly, to put it in one place. So how we're going to recommend you do that tonight is in a series of 3 ordinances, 2 charter ordinances and a regular ordinance. I've had an opportunity to discuss all this with Toby at you all have any questions, you should feel free to ask those. And with that, unless there's an initial question of what we're trying to accomplish, I'll just go ahead and get started with the first ordinance.
Any questions?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Go ahead.
Looks like, okay. The first ordinance we're recommending is the charter ordinance number 30, which will allow you to charter out some under state law, particularly 14-1501 through KSA 14-1504. These statutes, which add some confusion, have become largely inapplicable to the city of Hayes because you have adopted some time ago the city manager form of government. These statutes outline a process for commission appointees of officers that are part of the legal department, some legal departments of which you have created. A legal department as it relates to the law department not being created, and it seemed like that those added confusion. They also added a residency requirement that seemed more appropriate for you all to decide at a local level as opposed to be decided at the state level. So what Charter Ordinance number 30 does is it completely exempts you out of all of those statutes that would explain how you would, for instance, appoint your police chief and also all your other officers, and removes their residency requirements. We have and are suggesting some substitute language in the bottom of that would allow you from time to time by simple ordinance to establish residency requirements in the future. We certainly don't think that we're not in compliance with these state laws now, but we think this cleans up the confusion and eliminates those and eliminates residency requirements except for those that you would create in the future. This ordinance, if adopted, has to be adopted, of course, by a supermajority, and then it will have to be published twice, and after that it will take effect, assuming no one has a problem, since we're not changing anything, it would take effect 60 days thereafter. Does anybody have any questions about what we're recommending with respect to Charter Ordinance number 30?
A little bit of a clarification for the ordinance. It's because of the city manager form of government, or because we're a certain class of city?
The statutes, I mean, that's a really good question. The statutes only apply to second-class cities. They don't apply to first-class or third-class cities, and so that's why we can charter out from under them. The reason we want to charter out from under them is because they provide confusion as to the appointment of officers and residency requirements that could differ from your code in the future, and certainly differ with respect to the city manager form of government. So I think the question is twofold. Yeah, we can charter out from under them because they only apply to second-class cities, and yes, we should. Because we've pretty much, with the exception of the appointment of the city attorney, we've pretty much completely adopted the city manager form of government as it relates to all the departments within the city.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions on number 30? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Then I'll need a motion.
I'll move to approve Charter Ordinance number 30, exempting the city of Hayes, Kansas from the provisions of KSA 14-1501, 14-1502, 14-1503, and 14-1504, and providing substitute and additional provisions therefore.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Burgess, second from Commissioner Barrick. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0, ordinance number 30. Now we'll move on to number 31.
Thank you, Art. So our next recommendation as it relates to Charter Ordinance number 31 is to just charter out from under KSA 12-1040 entirely. KSA 12-1040 sets forth the duties and responsibilities of your city manager. That's its only purpose, and it's only applicable to cities that happen to have the city manager form of government. The reason why we're recommending chartering out from under this ordinance is twofold. First, the state law differs from what you've adopted in your code. In your code, for instance, you have added to the requirements of the city manager, for instance, to prepare and assist in preparing and presenting a budget for approval each year. That requirement is not in the state law, and so we didn't think we should have a state law that differs from the code in that regard. But the big essential add that you're going to have in your code that you don't have before, and what state law doesn't contemplate, is what the commission would do if for any period of time you didn't have a city manager. If you didn't have a city manager, state law does not say what happens with respect to, for instance, the appointment of a city clerk, or the appointment of a police chief, or the appointment of any of those key officers, including city attorney. We think that it is advisable in your code to have a process whereby, if for some short period of time you didn't have a city manager, and or you lost a city manager, a police chief, and a city attorney all at the same time, that you couldn't go ahead and begin to fill those positions as a commission. We think you should be able to fill those positions, and so this will add that provision that in the absence of a city manager for any short period of time, you can go ahead and fill those positions and make those appointments. So chartering out from under this law, not offering any substitute provisions because they're already in your code. Provisions being that the ability to fill those positions in the absence of the city manager, as well as the requirements and duties that you have for your city manager. Our code says that you have express duties and responsibilities of the city manager, and it also says you can add to those at any time. Statute doesn't say that, and so we just think it's best to let your city code control, not changing anything, adding options for the future, and eliminate KSA 12-1040. Does anybody have any questions about that recommendation?
So this allows us to get rid of our requirement that the city manager, attorney, and police chief can't ride the same plane at the same time.
Unfortunately, no. But you can adopt a policy to that effect.
Any other questions?
No.
No, makes sense.
Makes sense.
And the real risk is probably that they're all in the same building when a tornado arrives.
Yeah.
Most likely. Okay. And I will ask for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve charter ordinance number 31 exempting the city of Hays, Kansas from the provisions of KSA 12-1040.
Seconded.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, now we'll move on to ordinance number 4022.
So this is a simple ordinance that will amend your code to fix the things we have already discussed and to make clear the process for regularly reviewing and appointing your city attorney. In particular, it looks just like your existing code, even though we have to restate the section, except that it provides in subsection B that at least every 3 years, your city manager must consider for appointment or retention a city attorney. You can't be allowed to let go and languish for a long period of time. Every 3 years, the city manager must make a recommendation to the commission as to whether or not who should be the city attorney and whether or not they should be retained. Doesn't require you to change, but it does require him to make a recommendation, sort of calendar the thought process. In addition to that, it requires that at least every 12 years, the city manager would go out and circulate a request for proposals to see who's available for that job, find who's available for that job, and to compare the pricing to what you're paying. That also would not require a change, but would require the city manager to make a recommendation for the commission to consider as it relates to the city attorney. That outlines very specifically the process and the regularity of considering that officer. in your circumstance, that officer is a contract officer. They're not a member of a department currently at the city level, so they are an independent contractor, not an employee, and it formalizes that process. The only other change in this ordinance really is in C2, and it fills that gap we just talked about that didn't exist in state law. In the event the city manager is unwilling or unable to appoint the officers they need to appoint or make the recommendations they need to make, you could make them in the short term. It eliminates this problem of even if you were to just appoint an interim city manager. Does the interim city manager that you might bring in for 2 months while you conduct a search, do they have the authority to replace the police chief if necessary, the municipal judge, the city clerk, make a recommendation for appointment of the city attorney? All that is unclear currently. This will make it clear that the commission can do those things in the absence of the regular city manager during the vacancy. So those are the two big changes that we're recommending to the code. This is a simple ordinance. It just amends our existing code, and it will take effect upon publication. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Let's see. Wanted to be clear, so one of the things that I like about it is clearing things up, but we have a 12-year cycle before the manager has to actually go out and request for proposals. Now, if we, in that 12-year cycle, if we're in year 10 and we switch out city managers, does the new one have to do it in 2 years? So the 12 years stays 12 years no matter who's, at what point in time city managers might switch.
That's correct. It will be the city manager's job to do that every 12 years, and if 12 years have passed since the last time that was done, then it needs to get done. To perhaps make a more extreme example for your question, if the city manager left and there were only 6 months left in that 12-year time period, one of the new things the city manager would have to do upon a revival is circulate an RFP and make a recommendation to you, the city attorney.
And so one way we would address that, the city clerk is very good at setting a calendar up for recurring events like that, franchises, things like that. So every time a city attorney contract would get approved, we would start a 3-year clock. Now that contract may be brought back in 2 years, you know, if the city attorney and the city decide they want to renegotiate it, but no more than 3 years. So we would make sure we wouldn't miss that 3-year deadline to make a recommendation, but then we'd also put a 12-year deadline on. So if Colin happens to leave in 10 years and, you know, 2 years later, somebody just doesn't forget about it or forget it happens, it'll automatically come up.
And the city commission can take action on the city attorney prior to 3 years, though, correct, with this ordinance.
The city attorney, to be clear, under the code serves at the pleasure of the commission. The at least 3 years is simply designed to force a consideration at that time to make sure it's not something that just gets overlooked for a long period of time. It doesn't actually, as Toby made the point, require a contract term. The city attorney could contract for 1 year, 2 years. What they could not do is contract for 4 years, because at 3 years, the city manager is going to have to look at their performance and make a recommendation to either retain them or appoint someone new.
And can you explain something as far as commission action? It seems we have a commission of 5, so a majority is 3 commissioners. However, we can operate a meeting with just 3 commissioners, which means a majority vote would be just 2 commissioners. So could 2 commissioners take action on an attorney?
Yes, but to pass an ordinance, the law is clear that to pass an ordinance, a majority of the commissioners must vote in favor of it, not just a majority present. So you could have action with those 3 commissioners present, but all 3 of them would have to vote in favor of the ordinance. And we've done the same thing here for appointment of the city attorney so as to eliminate the stress of attendance. And I think you make a very, very good point. That's a very good question. So the appointments have to occur by a majority of the commission, not just a majority of the commission present. And that's designed so that if 3 people showed up and two wanted to do something and one didn't, it turns out three didn't, but two of them weren't there, it can't get done. I mean, the law is written that way on purpose, so that we don't pass an ordinance one week and then repeal it the next, because at least until there's an election, there's 5 people in the mix and 3 of them have to take the action.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Then I will request for a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 4022, repealing and replacing section 2-138, chapter 2, article 3 of the Code of the City of Hayes, Kansas, for providing powers and duties of the city manager and repealing any ordinance in conflict therewith.
Seconded.
Motion by Commissioner Barrick, a second by Commissioner Burgess. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, JT.
No, thank you, and thank you for your confidence in us. I really appreciate the opportunity to let us know if we're going to be of any assistance. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Too.
Yep. Here unto their.
That's how I talk all the time.
Exactly. That's how I talk at Christmas anyway. Commissioner inquiries and comments. A couple eggnogs. I didn't stop at Christmas. Commissioner Barrick.
No, I'm just excited, actually, that we were able to clear something up and do something productive for something that has been confusing for at least since the time I was here.
Yeah.
Just, it's been all of a year. Other than that, I don't think I have any more comments for the day.
Commissioner Jacobs.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Musil.
Yeah, I like the transparency that I think it shows transparency, and I think that's important for the commission. But I wanted to bring up something, Commissioner Burgess, you brought up next week or last week that you will be moving to the county, which sad to see you leave, but I look forward to working with you on that. We've only done this one other time since I've been on here where, the person supposed to be taking over as mayor isn't going to be here or whatever. And I had an idea, but this is just an idea. You guys, whatever you want to do, because it's more of it's a commission rule. It's not really an ordinance or anything, the way we do the mayor. I mean, we vote on him every year, but it's not an ordinance, correct?
It's both. It's an
It is
ordinance
both.
in your bylaws, but
Or
it's the
bylaws,
commission's
okay.
choice on how the mayor gets appointed.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is my suggestion, and I'm just throwing this out here, is maybe we split his term for the next 3, or extend yours 4 months, and if I would become mayor next, extend that 4 months, and then when Sandy would become mayor, extend hers for 4 months. But I don't know we did that, I think, when we changed the election from April to November. I know we extended it with 2 commissioners, but just a thought. I don't think we have to have an answer tonight. I don't know when we have to have that answer, or what you prefer, Toby.
You would need to have the answer before the planned reorganization meeting in January, but, so if the commission decided that is the path you would want to choose, then, assuming a new commissioner is brought on board after Commissioner Burgess leaves for the county, that commissioner would just be seated, and we would make a note to, I believe it would be like first regular meeting in May, to schedule that as the reorganization meeting. And that's when the current mayor's term would end, the new mayor would be appointed, and then assuming at that time it was still the commission's wish to, do the 4 months, then we schedule the next one 16 months out. And then by the time you got through Commissioner Jacobs' term as mayor, you would be back on track for the next person coming in to serve a mayoral term, and that would be the person in the next election that gets the highest vote total would be next in line for mayor after that.
But they wouldn't be the
Well,
mayor. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. Does that require action or consensus?
Right. It only requires action. It only requires action when it happens. So if it's the consensus that the commission wait, that's all we would need to reschedule it. So it would only require action when the reorganization would happen. So as long as you're on record stating that you would be in favor of that. Now, if you want to just if you want to make a motion that in order to fill Michael's 1-year mayoral term, that be split up with 16 months terms from the current, next, and following mayor, and get that approved, it would just be more solid than a consensus. It's completely up to you guys.
I'm okay making.
I'm okay either way.
I'm okay making that motion. If that's how you guys want to do it.
And I'm fine with it. It gets us back on track to where we were at.
Yeah, you just messed it up.
Michael just has to mess things up.
And nobody else gets to lead to mess it up.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
leaves.
Yeah, you don't mess it up. So, I mean, do you feel like I should make a motion?
I would say if you wanted to make a simple motion that Michael's mayoral term in 2023 be filled with the current following after that mayor's 16-month terms. That would be enough.
Do you want me to do that now?
It's up to you, fellow commissioners.
Are you guys okay with me making that motion now?
If you make it, I'll second it.
Thanks. So I will make a motion. I'm going to keep it simple, I think, is to replace Mr. Burgess. We extend Mayor Reuters for 4 months, and then the next two mayors be extended for 4 months to get us back on path to whatever the normal path would be. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
So we have a motion for Commissioner Musil, second from Commissioner Jacobs on the correction of term. Any other further discussion on that?
I don't abstain.
I can't believe Mayor Rudy just want to take another year, the whole year.
I'm waiting for my gold throne, and it hasn't shown
Then
up.
then it makes it really simple.
Exactly.
We'll make the county pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. we know a guy.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, well then I will call for a vote. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 And abstention? Okay, passes with 4 and 1 abstention.
Okay, we'll make it happen.
Thank you. I have nothing else.
Thank you, Commissioner Musil. Commissioner Burgess.
I got a couple comments.
Okay.
So Saturday, I participated in the Big Brothers Big Sisters Grow Us Your Beard event with this majestic piece. Had a lot of fun raising some money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and then on top of that, recognize Mike Bacher. He is actually a city employee, a longtime maintenance and parks department employee. I think 15 or 25 years, a long time in there. He won Best of Beard, so he has the best beard in all of the city of Hayes, and he works for the city of Hayes. So if you see Mike Bacher around, please compliment him on his beard.
Let him cut it off.
Yeah. He's probably been growing it as long as he's been working for the city. I want to recognize the Ellis mayor, David McDaniel. He served as president for the League of Kansas Municipalities for the year of 2022. They had their final meeting here at the end of November with his outgoing speech, and he's been a long time advocate and member of that organization, and really pushes for Kansas municipalities and especially the small communities like Hayes and Ellis and others throughout the state in their fight to run their own cities by their own ordinances. So congratulations to him for serving as president. And then recognize our friend and Hayes Mayor, Mason Reuter, won for his new position as an advancement director at TMP. Good luck with that new adventure. And then he also completed the certified public manager program, 300 hours, was recognized at the state for that completion of that program. So congratulations on that.
Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. It was, I feel like I tell it to everybody, that program is one of the best programs I've ever been a part of. It really helps build a lot of the leaders that you see throughout our state. And then since they partnered with Missouri, it's Kansas, Missouri is going to have a lot of really good leaders coming up. We had a really good class, including our own here, Aaron Domi, with the fire department. He graduated alongside me, and it was great to have everybody there. Had two others at the county, Vern Reeder, the treasurer, and Brendan McKay with Public Works, all put in the time and effort needed to get through that program. And
So which Drew got the better grade?
I did.
You looked off your test, or you looked off his test?
It's fine, fine. Aaron actually started the program back in 2020 and has been trying to get through it while they were dealing with COVID. So he's definitely put in some time and had the patience to get through it. So proud of him for sticking through it and getting it done. It's a lot of work, takes a lot of time, but it's worth it in the end. So I'm proud of him and the department. Don't think I really have anything else this evening. Any executive sessions? Nope. All right. Then we will adjourn at 4:36.